to go.
I love my fatherland.
Oh yeah,
I want to know.
I want to know
Which way Nigeria is heading to.
many years after independence.
What if I told you that on October 25th, 2025, a secret plan was set in motion inside Nigeria's military, a plan to overthrow President Bola Ahmed Tinubu himself? This wasn't fiction. It wasn't rumor. It was real. A group of officers and civilians had come together with one goal: to end Tinubu's presidency by force. But before their plan could even begin, it was exposed. The plot collapsed, and the alleged masterminds were arrested. The coup had failed. But what came next was even more shocking. When the news broke, millions of Nigerians didn't celebrate the government's victory. Instead, social media exploded with reactions that stunned the world. Ordinary citizens openly wishing the coup had succeeded. Reports suggested that both military officers and influential politicians, from both the North and South, had been quietly working together. Inside the corridors of power, whispers spread. Could this really be happening again? Soon after, the Nigerian Defense Headquarters stepped forward. They confirmed the arrest of 16 military officers accused of what they called unprofessional conduct. Among those detained were senior officers, men with access to critical bases, command networks, and intelligence systems. These weren't foot soldiers. They were insiders. The identities of the 16 detained officers remain classified, but insiders say they come from multiple branches of the armed forces: the Army, Navy, and Air Force. Nigeria's security agencies are now operating at heightened alert, locking down key installations and quietly monitoring communications to prevent any chain reaction. Then came another leak. A senior source alleged that a former governor had provided funds to help organize the coup, a plot reportedly scheduled to take place on October 25th. He revealed, yes, that is true. Investigators are also tracking the movements of several politicians, both from the North and the South, who are suspected of playing background roles in the scheme. In the halls of government, tension is thick. Phones are being tapped. Meetings are being watched. Every whisper could be evidence. Every handshake, a clue. In fact, the Nigerian president is said to be a CIA asset as a result of his drug trafficking connections during his time in the U.S. It's only in recent times under the current U.S. President Donald Trump that there seems to be a little tension between Nigeria and the U.S. The National Publicity Secretary of the new Nigeria People's Party, Ladipo Johnson, said Nigerians deserve to know the truth about the alleged coup plot and the nature of the charges against the detained officers. They should let us know what actually happened. We have to know the charges and whether they are facing court-martial or not. So we will know with time whether the military was lying to us or whether the news of soldiers planning a coup is true. Whichever way, we ought to know. That is part of the due process, he said. Also weighing in, the national coordinator of the Obedient Movement worldwide, Dr. Yunusa Tanko, said it was important to verify the authenticity of the alleged coup story before drawing conclusions. First of all, you need to establish the truth of the matter before you can suggest punitive measures. There are people already insinuating that this particular statement is planted in the news by the government in power in order to gain traction, he noted, adding that public discontent over the government's performance may have fueled the rumor. As for ordinary citizens whose lives have been greatly affected negatively since Tinubu came to power, the news of an attempted coup was very much welcomed. In fact, across social media, most Nigerians called on the military to try again. They urged them to orchestrate another coup which would result in Tinubu leaving office. What does this tell you? It means that just like other African countries, Nigerian citizens are tired of the so-called democratic rule which has been in operation since independence. Rather than progress, the country's economic situation seems to worsen by the day. Even the so-called democratic principles are not being implemented in Nigeria. For example, a few days ago the government ordered the police to tear gas people who came out to protest. And afterwards the presidency released a statement saying that, even though Nigeria is a democratic country, there are rules that must not be crossed. The question is it no longer constitutional or democratic for citizens to exercise their right to protest? When has it become a crime for citizens of a country to peacefully protest? This is to tell you the kind of state most African countries have deteriorated to. These African leaders never fail to scream democracy, but their actions are anything but democratic. What then is the difference between this so-called democracy and military rule? Isn't it better for Nigeria to be in a military rule than a democratic one? Well, these are the questions that need to be answered. What do you think?